Well, fellas, this is it. Game 7, Stanley Cup Final, alongside Chris Johnston and Pierre LeBrun. A story is going to be written tonight, guys. Either one of the most incredible stories in the history of hockey, quite frankly, or a story about a Florida Panthers team that dodged one. It's going to be something, Pierre, and all eyes will be on Connor McDavid, as we expect. He'll be an author in one way or another tonight.
Listen, I don't think there's any way to undersell this. If Connor McDavid leads the Edmonton Oilers to the greatest comeback since 1942 in Stanley Cup Final history, he cements his place in the conversation of Gretzky, Orr, and himself as the greatest player ever. I mean, he probably doesn't need a cup to be considered the greatest player ever at the end of his career, but it certainly will help cement it ahead of time if he can do that tonight.
I'll politely disagree. I think he's got to win a cup. I think obviously he's got a chance to win a cup today. It's going to happen eventually. But to give you some perspective on how rare this is, Wayne Gretzky played one Game 7 for a Cup Final in 1987, had an assist in that game. Sidney Crosby played one in 2009 when Pittsburgh won its first Cup with him as the team captain. Detroit got injured midway through the game, was unable to finish the third period, but they won that game. But this is, those are the sort of generational players. This doesn't happen too often, and so I'm just looking forward to enjoying it. And I do think he's got to get his cup to enter the conversation that you want to have.
So Zach Hyman, talking to the media today, had an interesting comment, CJ, about the rest of Canada, right? There's this idea that maybe it's Canada's team in some way because of this cup drought in Canada, how long it's been. Hyman had an interesting comment today, kind of playing into that a little bit. I'm not sure if Flames fans or Leaf fans are going to buy it, but it was interesting from Hyman today.
Well, yeah, plug your ears if you're in Calgary, especially. But I do think that there's an element here, though, where people love a good story, and this is a great sporting story, as you alluded to. I don't think you need to be a hockey fan to appreciate how unique this is, coming back from 0-3 down in this series, having the best player of his generation on the team, leading the team. And I do think there's an element, at least anecdotally in my group chats with my friends, of people getting behind the Oilers for this game in the country. I mean, 31 long years, Pierre, since the Montreal Canadiens last won it for Canada. I mean, it's been a long time.
And just to clarify, the comment that he made, if people haven't heard it, was basically, I feel like we've dragged, what did he say, roped a lot.
We've roped some people in, basically.
I feel like we've roped a lot of people into supporting us, and that, he hopes that the support is there from across the country, and that he thinks it is, Pierre.
Yeah, and I spoke to Vincent D'Anfous, Kirk Muller, and Guy Carmen from those 93 Habs that you just alluded to for a piece in The Athletic, Chris. And number one, they say it's time. It's enough. They've held a mantle for way too long as Canada's last Stanley Cup champion, so they're cheering for the Oilers tonight. But the other thing is, I asked all three, can you imagine in 93 if I would have told you you'd still be the only Canadian team to have won? And they said never in their minds. And it kind of got into some of the comments of D'Anfous and Carbonneau, how much harder it is for Canadian teams today in the cap era and taxes and everything else, players not wanting to play in Canada, some players, we've talked about that, CJ, you and I, off air. It's just harder. And so for the Oilers, if they can achieve this, I don't know that you can expect this that often. I just think the cards, are sort of go against a Canadian team to keep players, to build a contender, and to have everything in your favor.
If you're the Florida Panthers here, Chris, you want no part of being on the wrong side of this one, man. You don't want to be that answer to that trivia question, and they're faced with that. More than anything, they were in the Cup Final last year, really kind of fell through their hands. It wasn't that close. They've got a chance here, but nerves-wise, man, this has to be building for them. We're going to learn a lot about this group tonight.
We are, and look, it's been tough. I mean, you can see some of the energy slowly coming out of them in this series as Edmonton's roared back into it. And, obviously they're here, they're at home, they want to clear their minds and just make it about one game. But it also, ultimately, you can't get around the fact that they've played 200-plus games together, the core of this team, over the last 2 years. The last team to lose back-to-back Cup Finals, if you want the trivia question, is the Boston Bruins in 77 and 78. So that would, in itself, would be unusual. And, of course, the fact they were up 3-0. So, I mean, they're just trying to focus on the positive, but in these circumstances, I don't know how easy that'll be for them to do.
And I know that part of Paul Maurice's message over the last few days to his team has been, listen, the Oilers lost 3 in a row, and they just focused on the next game. We've lost 3 in a row. Let's focus on this game. It's simple, but it could be accurate in terms of just getting in the right place mentally for this game. Here's the other thing. If the Panthers win the night, and they may very well, to me, I know the Panthers have talked about this. This is the hardest trophy to win in sports. And what better example if they win it this way after everything that's happened?
So there was some, I don't know what the right word is. When the Florida Panthers threw all the families on a flight and brought them up to Edmonton for game number 4. And our understanding is there were a lot of people that came for game 4. Didn't go well. They didn't get to celebrate. They made the decision not to do that for game 6. There was almost nobody there. I think we were
15.
Roughly 15 people from the Panthers. So this is different. It's game 7, CJ. So, there's no risk here. You're bringing them in one way or another. But the Oilers have a massive contingent here.
Yeah, it sounds like a little over 200 people came down. The Oilers actually had to get 2 planes to get all, staff members who don't travel, family members of the players, those with a vested interest in this. And you do that obviously to give them a chance to celebrate a victory if you have that victory. And it's sort of an awkward dance, as you mentioned. I mean, when the Panthers could have swept in game 4, you bring everyone in. They chose not to do it. It's a long flight. But, a lot of people came from the Oilers contingent, and we can tell you from our own travels, a lot of Oilers fans have also come down on the commercial flights as well, and are going to try to get in this arena for game 7.
Did their luggage make it or not, like Ryan Rishaug here?
Hopefully on the charter it all made it. We can confirm, as Pierre, you and I were out getting our 10,000 steps last night in Fort Lauderdale. Oiler fan is here en masse. They are everywhere. Walking past establishments, there were "Let's Go Oiler" chants emanating out of these places. Like they're here en masse. So the Oilers left for dead at the start of the season. They got off to that brutal start. A lot of questions about whether they'd even make the playoffs, and now a chance to cap it all off with a Stanley Cup championship if they can get past the hometown Panthers tonight.